Hi, I'm Grady Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and welcome to Sunday Journal. I'm joined today by a special guest from the state who's going to tell us more about grants that have been set aside for supportive and social day programs for those who are in some older residents, also those who are facing symptoms of dementia. Pam, do you mind introducing yourself for our listeners? Tell us more about yourself as well as what you do with the programs.
Sure. I'm Pam MacLeod from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Elder Affairs and UMass Chan Medical School, and I am Senior Project Director working on various issues and programs around dementia.
All right, awesome. Now, some of the we've received grants ranging from $15,000 to $300,000, including some local organizations, including the Alzheimer's Family Support Center of Cape Cod, the town of Chatham. We've also had the town of Orleans, and also Martha's Vineyard Center for Living. Can you talk a little bit more about what the money is primarily supposed to be used for? More about what these supportive and social day programs are for those who aren't familiar?
Sure. Supportive and social day programs are an opportunity for older adults, especially those living with dementia, to connect with other people and engage socially with other people. They differ across the state and across programs. And some have music programs, performances, some have crafts and art programs, exercise programs, nature walks, field trips. So they differ and they're tailored toward the needs of the local area.
All right, awesome. Now, as well, how important is the social dynamic for people who are suffering from dementia? Is that something that is a part of treatment almost? Is that something that can kind of help keep the mind kind of more strong and elastic in that regard? What are some of the benefits to some of these?
Excellent question, because it is key. Social engagement can actually prevent the acceleration of cognitive decline. So it's very important to keep people living with dementia, actually all of us, but especially people living with dementia, socially active, because they can live a healthy life and continue to live without a rapid decline in social and in cognitive impairment.
hmm Now, a lot of these programs, we're here on Cape Cod. We do have a lot of older residents. Barnstable County, I believe, is the oldest county in America outside of Florida. So we just have a lot of 60 and older individuals. But can you talk a little bit more about who is potentially at risk? And we don't necessarily need to get like we're a doctor necessarily, but do you mind kind of talking more about does running in the family, is that something to watch out for? Is there symptoms that maybe you can go online and learn more about? Can you just talk more about that?
Sure. So, age is the biggest risk factor. So, 1 in 9 people age 65 and over have Alzheimer's disease. Almost three-quarters of them are 75 years old or over, and almost two-thirds are women. We have nearly 7 million people in the country with an Alzheimer's diagnosis, about 135,000 in Massachusetts. Many people, as much as 60%, are living without a diagnosis but have the disease. Um, Really, dementia, Alzheimer's is the greatest, most common cause of dementia. Dementia is actually an umbrella term for a range of symptoms, and those symptoms are usually memory loss, behavioral changes, difficulty solving problems, difficulty thinking, and they have to be severe enough to interfere with daily life in order to be considered dementia. So, who's at risk? Well, older adults are at risk. Their studies are all over the place in terms of whether inheriting it is a big risk factor. There are lots of things you could do. So it's not doom and gloom. There's lots of things you could do to reduce your risk of dementia. You can have very healthy brain habits like staying socially engaged, and it's never too early or too late to do that. Also, just protecting your head injuries can sometimes cause dementia later in life. There are other issues like treating hearing problems, because hearing problems can isolate you. And so you're more likely to stay social. They can protect your brain if you perhaps look into getting hearing aids if you have hearing loss. And then staying mentally engaged is very important. So taking classes, never too late to do that, or taking on a new hobby, learning a new route to get somewhere that you used to going to. All those things, as trivial as they seem, actually help to protect the brain. And then anything that protects the heart also protects the brain. So eating well, sleeping well, exercise, all those things we know we need to do to protect our heart, also protect our brain.
That is very interesting. So as well, I mean, this is of course a lot of grants, a lot of money that is going towards specifically these programs that are targeting those with Alzheimer's, with dementia already. But it's interesting to know that like things like the Katuitt Center for the Arts or some other kind of active, interesting new things can be a lot preventative nature if you need another reason to get out and be social. Though I know that it has been difficult over the past few years because we are now in the new normal after the COVID-19 pandemic with oncoming, either natural immunity or booster-based immunity. But did COVID present a lot of issues for some of these programs that were trying to help people with dementia? Did that maybe set us back a few steps in some regards? Can you give us an update on that front?
Yes, well, it did. It set us back a bit. Some of these social and supportive and social day programs in our state closed. And this new money that is going out to grants will help recreate, rebuild the system and the infrastructure for providing these programs. So that's very important. And, it just wasn't safe for people to go to in-person events during COVID, of course, especially older adults. And we saw other types of programs like our memory cafes throughout our state. We have these memory cafes. They're often held in churches or in restaurants, cafes, all kinds of places, senior centers, assisted living residences, where people from the public living with dementia and their family members can go and participate in activities once a month or a couple of times a month, depending on where it is and where it's located, how often it's open. And a lot of those closed as well, but they're starting to rebuild. And also our participation in our senior centers, which are important for social engagement as well and open for people living with dementia. And all older adults, they saw a reduction in their participation for obvious reasons, because people were afraid of COVID. So, but now we're seeing the participation going up, which is wonderful.
hmm Yeah, I mean, some of this money is also partially, it's kind of like it is a moment to maybe kind of ring the bell or kind of try and just kind of celebrate these and get maybe people more aware of them. Do you think there's some families out there who just maybe aren't even aware that if they have a family member who's starting to, recess away from stuff, that maybe they should start looking into some of these programs? Is there a website through the state that maybe they can learn more?
Yes, certainly. The state has a website called Mass Options, and there's an 800 number, and I can give you that number. That is 800-243-4636. And what happens is you could just call that number, tell them your story, what you're concerned about, or what you need if you already know what you need, and they will do a warm handoff to an organization that can help get you what you need.
All right, that is awesome. Now, just due to the nature of radio, do you mind just giving me that phone number one more time for those who might have missed it the first time around? Just for those who maybe weren't prepared for it. But what's that number again?
Oh, of course, 800-243-4636.
All right, awesome. So that's very interesting as well. Just trying to get people more social, more involved, and that there's no age too young for it. Getting me back and get back in my Sudoku habit soon, just after this conversation. But that is really it is awesome to see more money. Do you think that this is also Governor Maura Healey did offer some support? A lot of kind words related to wanting to offer more support for those with Alzheimer's, for dementia, for the older residents in general. Do you think that stuff like this also makes the state more appealing to live in? Recently, we've been seeing a lot of families that have been considering moving away out of Massachusetts. And a lot of the Healey administration's goals have been trying to get more programs set up that make Massachusetts more appealing. Now, this is obviously targeting the older residents, but that's, grandma and grandpa. Do you think that this is going to make it more appealing for people who want to stay?
Sure, that's a good question because if we go back to talking about the supportive and social day programs and the expansion of this doesn't only help the older adults, but their family members, especially if you have someone in your family, in your household living with dementia. Many of our residents living with dementia have family members who care for them. This way they can go to work, they can do what they need to do during the day, reconnect with their loved ones at the end of the day. This is very appealing to young people.
Mm-hmm.
And also older people who care for older adults.
It's true, but yeah, that is awesome. Spouses immediately comes to mind and whatnot, especially those that are in living facilities or any kind of other assisted living stuff like that. But that's awesome. It is a lot of wonderful stuff. It's a lot of money that's been coming towards Cape Cod. We have the full story up on CapeCod.com. We want to see the full breakdown of how the money is being distributed, so we won't go over that here and now. Otherwise, it just becomes a memorization test for poor Pam. But thank you so much. That is a lot of awesome programs and very interesting to learn more about preventative measures and where people can learn more. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight for our listeners, either some personal excitement about this program or maybe some other programs and services that you're excited about that you just want to make sure our listeners catch while we're still here?
Sure. I'd like to say that this is actually a very exciting time in the field of Alzheimer's because back in July of 2023, the FDA approved the first ever disease-modifying drug. It's called Leqembi. And there's another disease-modifying drug that we expect this year in 2024, later this year. It's not without its challenges. We're building up the infrastructure. These drugs have to be administered intravenously, so there are infusion centers being built across the state. But it's very exciting because I know that neurologists often describe it as how you're in a car going down a hill, and for the first time ever, we have a brake pedal. The pedal doesn't go all the way to the floor, so it's not a cure. It doesn't stop the disease, but it slows it down significantly, so you can have a much better quality of life.
That is awesome. We've been very excited about that. We covered it when it was first announced. I would actually, Pam, I'd love to have you back on again when this starts to be the first rollout. We get to have a few people who are going to be experiencing this. It is definitely an amazing time and a testament to modern medicine. But thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. It has been lovely.
Thank you so much. Bye.
I'm Rudy Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and thank you for listening.